Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for another quick little bit of tag time. I've got some of the watercolour pencil butterflies that we created in a few minutes of fun. I'll link to that video in case you haven't seen it. Some of the flower stems as well, not quite sure, because I want to use these mop-up tags. They are mopping up from a video which, if I've got this in my head in the right order, you probably haven't seen yet. But they're the usual size 8 manila tags that I use, same as Ranger's manila tags, as they previously used to have. The closest probably now is the, what do they call it, heavy stock mixed media tags. These are from, mine are from a UK craft shop, which sadly has now closed down, unable to compete with Amazon and their like. But yeah, I'm still making my way through my last few boxes of them. I thought I'd use one of my recent leafy stencil additions to the PaperArtsy line. I've got a little bit of speckled egg distress ink. I want these in the background, so they're going to be quite subtle. I want them fading away, not very present. So a little bit of the ink to start with, and then I thought I might add a little bit of the speckled egg oxide as well. So I've got speckled egg distress ink and speckled egg distress oxide. So it's just creating really almost a subliminal little leafiness under there at the moment. Let's go back in, if I can line it up approximately. You can sort of see where they are, even though it's so subliminal. You just hit that moment where you can just see, oh yeah, we're in focus. Let's get a little bit of this distress oxide. I'll just switch sponges so I'm not putting the exact same oxide onto my distress ink sponge. I tend to mix colours, so I'll do all my blue distress inks on one sponge, but I prefer not to put ink and oxide onto the same sponge, even though it might be the exact same colour. That's working beautifully for me as a bit of background. So I'm going to do a similar thing over here, and this time go straight for the oxide, because that's what's showing up nicely. Although I may discover that what I like is the mix of oxide and ink. Yeah, so let's do it. Let's be consistent. So I'm putting a bit of distress ink through now as well, just down that stem to the bottom. And it's just a soft, subtle leafy layer to start us off, because as you can see, I've also got some leafy stamps ready to go. Foliage, foliage, foliage. Just creating a little summery background, probably for these butterflies. I haven't quite decided yet, but I think that's probably what it is. Having made them all, it would be nice to use them, wouldn't it? I'm just lining that up again because I want to make this side, the leaves on this side, a little more prominent. They didn't quite get a look in. There we go. That's more like it. Grand. Maybe just a little bit extra on that one. See if we can line it up. This one is the one I'm going for. So I don't really mind whether everything else is lined up. I just want that one in focus. That's very pretty. I like that. I could go over with another layer of these leaves. Let's see what might be nice colour-wise. I think I'm going to leave it at that. One nice thing to do through the stencil is you can add a little bit of extra detail with a bit of stamping, if you feel so inclined. And I've got this rather nice speckle stamp here, so I think I might go for, what have I got? Where's the beach cruiser? That might show up quite nicely. Let's just give these leaves a little bit of speckle, shall we? I'm not going to mount it on a grid block, because I think if I've got it like this, it's going to enable me to press down through those stencil holes a little more, with a little more precision. So you can see those speckles turning up on the stencil, but what they're also doing is heading through onto those leaves. I'll show you in a second, and then on the next one I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it actually happening. Is that giving us a little bit of extra texture? Yeah, that's rather nice. It's just a little extra detail. Come on, focus. onto those leafy bits that's just giving us something extra in there. I want a little bit more. Again, it's this one. This one seems to be escaping me. I don't know why. Let's stamp through there. There we go. That's a bit better. Yeah, little speckledy leaves. I'm going to zoom in now. Okay, so ready for a bit of leafy stamping through here. I realise I've got to flip the stencil, and there's quite a lot of ink on the back here, so I'm just going to clean off the majority of it. I'm not going to be completely precise about it, but just so that archival ink doesn't end up smearing all over our rather lovely speckled tag here. So trying to line up again so that I'm over my leafy stems. Speckled background again, just dabbing it onto the ink and then pressing. I'm using my fingers to just guide where I know there's a gap, some speckle through those holes to just catch the leaves. And again, if you want to create a bit of extra stem detail, you can absolutely do that too. So there are spaces in this stem, obviously, in order for the stencil not to fall apart. You have to have some joining up bits sometimes. So there are places where the stem goes away, which you can choose to fill in with a pencil or a pen, or as I'm doing here, just leave them kind of gently fading in and out of view. I rather like the fading in and out of view look that's going on. So I think I'm going to use this Beach Cruiser again with, got to decide between the silhouette version, so that's quite strong stamping, and the little detailed sketchy version of these. I think we might go sketchy. Let's see. This one I am going to mount because it's quite a detailed stamp. No, I think that's the silhouette. Silhouette is shorter and squatter. The sketchy one is taller and slightly more elongated. So let's ink him up. Ink that up across there. It's not quite adhering to the block, is it, at the moment? That's cause, look at the back of that. Filthy, filthy dirty. Let's give that a little bit of a wipe, just to allow a better adhesion to the block. Having wiped off all that ink, I need to ink it up again. Not to worry, I mean that's milli litres of ink that I've lost in wiping that off and starting again. So I'm just going to layer that over the top to create the depth of perception as that heads into the background. So that's dropping the other leaves really into the background, letting them almost depart. I'm going to put a little one up the side here as well, just a little height on that tag, and then layering again, something into the middle. So as always, working in a pair, I'm creating that sense of echoing, responding, repetition, variation. And of course, if you switch them over, you get a whole different kind of look as that tumbles away from the center. That's already quite pretty. I don't know how much more I really want to do to this. I'm going to take this lovely ephemera stamp, and I might use that in a neutral. Somewhere here I've got my Pebble Beach, so I might just create a little echo of stamping. I'm going to go for both at once. So if I line them up like that, it won't be in a line once it's done with. There we go. Repetition and variation. And I think I'd quite like another of those. So I want it down on that one and up on, well, I might need to do these separately just to make sure I'm getting them where I want them. I think going off that corner, that's quite nice, which might mean I want it coming off this corner at the bottom here, quite subtly in amongst the greenery on that one. I've got lovely stamping on my mat there. It's the usual silicone craft mat, so that wipes off nice and easily, even though it's archival ink. And now maybe let's have a look at some butterflies and stems. Don't know that I want the stems, partly because of that white outline. Ooh, oh, well, that's quite nice, isn't it? Having said I don't want it. Just looking at the other ephemera stamp in this set and thinking it's rather nice, and maybe I want it going along the bottom. It's the wording out of a book publication, but in a beautiful Gothic font. So I think I might just pop that along the bottoms here. Again, keeping it quite subtle in that Pebble Beach. Just a little touch of extra text. That horizontal line is not horizontal. Just going to have to live with it because it's there now. There we go. Maybe I want one going up the side. No, yes, see, it's going to bother me that it's not horizontal. So maybe I'll need to just add something over the top of that. We'll get to that. But embrace the imperfections. We'll see where it takes us. I've got that settled now. Well, you see, that immediately deals with the problem, doesn't it? Let's have a look at what we've got. Quite like that already, just as a thing. What about if you see further up, he just gets in the way of all that lovely leafiness. Whereas this one I quite like because there's a bit of a blotchy, it's a bit too blotchy and green there. Quite like one with a little bit of purple on, I think, because I'm enjoying that purple. Let's see if you're too much. And then we'd have, yeah, different butterflies as opposed to the same butterfly. Or we could use this chap with quite a lot of purple. Or there's a slightly more watercolory affair. No, not that one. Let's come back to you. Oh, look, he wasn't quite on the page. I remember now when I cut him, I discovered he was heading off. So one of the things I could do here is choose to add a little more blue-green myself. Let's grab a little bit of faded jeans, maybe. I'm going to pop a bit of faded jeans onto the mat like so. Grab my water brush and just move a little bit of blue through into this butterfly, because what I like is the blue over here, and I'd just like a little echo of it happening. If I just use the very tip, then I can even add a little more detail in. So on this quite watercolory stamping, I have the option to create a bit more detail if I want to add it. Just letting that echo what's going on over here around those lines. I could even go and fetch a watercolour marker if I feel like I need a bit more going on. But I think that's quite nice. It's just giving us something that echoes the blue over here happening over here. Let's beef up the detail in this little corner. Just little markings. Just help to give us the presence of the butterfly. That now could have a little more there. I think I've used a little bit of white pen over here. I did add some white pen to some of them at the last minute. Since this is on the mat, why not use it to create just a little bit of extra spatter pattern. There we go. No point ignoring leftover ink. That's quite nice. What was I talking about? Oh yes, white pen detailing. Was that? Not sure that was even the butterfly I was using. That's the butterfly I was using. So where's my dip pen gone? There's my dip pen. Here's my white ink. I'm just going to dip into there. I find I need a little bit of water, as I was saying when I used this in the previous video, just to loosen up that ink so that I can get it to, let's just check I'm on camera, yes I am. So through here, that enables me to, again, just add some little bits of detailing that can really be quite nice in amongst that watercolour stamping. There's his body. I'll put a little bit of detailing over here. Yeah, there's definitely some white pen work going on here already. And it really just allows it to pop. So pretty. There. So now those two butterflies have more of a relationship to each other without being exactly the same, and that's giving me quite a lot of pleasure. This is one of the lovely things about creating your own handmade ephemera, or handmade focal images in this case actually, is you get to choose how much and what goes onto them. I want to ink a little around the edges here, maybe just in something like, I don't know, bundled sage. A little green around the edges of these butterflies. Might want to be blue, might need to change it. But I just want to create a bit more definition. There was already something else on this sponge, but I'm happy to live with whatever green it wants to offer me. That's just creating that extra bit of definition around those butterflies. And then I think I'll pop a little bit on the back, because what I do want to do, as is my wont, is I want to create a little bit of dimension with these. Just let them bend up, and that means if I've got something on the wings at the back, just a little lift. That'll give them that extra little bit of presence. That's pretty, that's pretty. Seem to be in pretty mode today, what can I say? Sometimes that's what happens. I'm debating putting a staple through these, because it's one of the simplest ways of getting these to glue down. But we did do that the other day, and it was all too reminiscent of entomologists, lepidopterists collecting butterflies and then just pinning them on boards. So I think what I'll do is go with a bit of glue instead of putting a staple right through the body of my butterflies today. A little less butterfly cruelty. There we go. That's all very pretty. That's all very pretty. All nice and light. I've got this ink on the mat, which is making me think, ha ha ha, a little bit of white spatter. Ahead of the game with this one. That's usually the last task, but it's right there on the mat, so let's do it. That's almost enough now. Almost there. Let's let that white ink dry. I might blot it back a little bit. It'll soften the look, and come in with some more later on. Very simple. A little bit of twine that's going to go through the top. Let's just snip that. Just thinking about the words, and while I think about the words, I'm just going to put this twine through and back and up. Some days simplicity is enough, and because I'm enjoying the gentle summertime colours, I'm enjoying the detail of those butterflies, I feel like I don't want to detract from those butterflies. I want to let them have their space and time. But I do think, oh look, they work both ways round. I do love that. I'm thinking maybe an embossed white word. Where's my white embossing powder? Are you opaque bright white? Yes, you are. Opaque bright white might be a bit much. There is a lovely gentle thing called Seafoam white. Let's see if that's around. What are you? Seafoam white. There we go, which is, as you might imagine, a sort of bluey green white, which might be the better option for this. And since this is a stamp set that's here, I'm going to go with the words that are here. I think we might have hopeful and listen. I'm now wondering about the white embossing and again whether it might detract too much. No, let's go for it. And then what would be lovely would be a white rim around the edge. Okay, what did I say? Listen and hopeful. We can always be hopeful, can't we? Whether it transpires or not. So if we have listen on this one and hopeful on this one, I think that's quite good. Or let's just look at where that might want to be. It's actually going to be that way around, so we should just... If you're higher up and you're lower down, that's quite a nice contrast. Since that butterfly's lower down, maybe that word should be lower down. Oh, that's quite nice. Just trying to get a sense of how that'll look. Maybe this needs to be the longer word. That's looking better to my eye. And then, of course, what I do need to make sure is that things are dry on the tag, because otherwise my embossing powder is going to cling in places I don't want it to cling. So I'm going to heat dry these to make sure they're ready for the embossing powder. There we go. I suppose I don't mind too much if there's just the odd little bit of white embossing powder that makes its way somewhere else. I'm trying to find a piece of paper that I can catch my embossing powder on. That should be all right. Grand. Doesn't really matter what colour I stamp these in, because the embossing powder is opaque, and so as long as I get the ink on nice and quickly, well, let's do it in nice subtle. That's an Oxide, and just as I stamp it, I'll be able to tell whether I want just the Oxide instead, or whether I do want this white word. I don't want it in the centre. That's not quite right. Dash it all. Maybe it does want to go up there. Down here. Ooh, maybe that's nice. Just off, right off centre. Oh, look, it's quite nice in blue, isn't it? Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to emboss it. Or am I? Eesh, decisions. Let's go. Let's do it. Because there's a whiteness to the butterfly background that might mean it's quite nice to have that there. Let's take that back in. You can see I was torn. That's there. And so this has now moved as well, which I think is good. I think I didn't have it in quite the right place. So putting hopeful on the grid block. And hopefully the grid block has a grid, which should enable me to line that up straight. What do we stamp in? Speckled egg oxide. Look how beautiful that looks, even just on the stamp. Very nice. Careful not to knock off the powder. I just want that there so I can sort of tell where I want this other word. Are we the right way up? Yes, we are. I'm pretty sure that's not straight on my line. Just going to live with it. There we go. Oh, that's pretty too. Okay, let's go white. We've gone white. Doing it. Doing it. There we go. Oxides, like distress inks, will stay moist for a reasonably long time. You don't have to completely panic about getting the powder on. They don't stay moist as long as an embossing ink, which is really sticky, but they do stay moist a little longer than something like an Archival. But as I've said before, I find that using the embossing ink when you're working with a detail stamp can sometimes mean that you lose a bit of detail because the embossing ink is so sticky and it holds a lot of powder. I do sometimes find that leaves me disappointed in the detail once it's embossed, once the powder is melted. I'm doing this on camera for at least one of them, so that you get to see that magic moment when things melt and turn white, and thankfully it is a really subtle bluish greenish white, and it's not detracting from the butterfly at all. I think if I'd used bright white that might have been a bit much. What I really like is the sort of the subtlety of that, letting the foliage and the butterfly shine, and just gently in the background a little reminder to listen and be hopeful. Nice. I really love how sort of gentle that is. I would like a white outline round here. I did mention on a recent video or if I'm publishing them in different order on an upcoming video, that I have had problems in the past with keeping white gel pens going. If you've got a white gel pen and you can make it work for you, by all means use that to create a little white outline. I'm going to return to my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleedproof white ink and my dip pen. I'm going to put a little bit onto the mat here so that I can pick it up. I'm going to again just loosen it with a bit of water. Apologies for all the shadows being cast today. It's another gloomy-ish sort of day, and I'm going to use that white ink to just, ooh, lovely noise, create a little doodled frame for my tag. And we might go for the double line since that's quite pleasurable. Come on. Pick up some more ink. There we go. That's nice. Gentle summertime, misty morning, soft colours, kind words, a little gentleness, kindness, softness, I think is a helpful thing just at the moment. A little double line up that side, I'm fine with that. And along the bottom, that's going to draw my attention back to that crooked bit of stamping. But I'm going to live with it. Interesting, it doesn't want to go across that bit. I just need a bit more ink, I think, is the thing. There we go. Oh no, there's something resisting there. I wonder what it is. I don't think I used any resists in that mop-up video. Anything that would resist, like an acrylic paint or acrylic ink. That's really deliciously subtle, so I'm going to leave as much of that ink on the mat as I can to come back with my spatter brush and just do a little bit of, ooh, that's a lot. I might again knock that back just a little bit. Yeah, those big globules that managed to escape despite me testing on the mat to start with. Let's just knock those back and go in for something a little more subtle. There we go. Gentle, sweet, pretty. Sometimes that's the order of the day. Keeping things very simple on these tags. A little bit of stenciling, a little bit of stamping, and a couple of butterflies. And up to you to decide which of those two versions you prefer, with the foliage towering downwards or the foliage framing the eye upwards. I will dive in for a close-up so you can have a little look at some of those layers, those spotty leaves in the stenciling, the penwork detail on the butterflies. Thank you, as always, for your company on this creative journey. It wouldn't be the same without you. Do leave any comments or questions down below. I will link to the butterfly video. It was also the stems and the mop-ups you will see happening in an upcoming episode of A Few Minutes of Fun. Thanks as always, and happy crafting all.